network security groups page on presentation, wherein it is showing you inbound security rules and outbound security rules. So there are default security rules. You cannot delete the default rules, but you can add other rules with a higher priority. So we'll see all of this, how these rules are working, the sequence, what is about the priority, and you can see each rule has priority, name of the rule, that is for your identification of the rule, what rule you have created, port number, protocol. You can define source, destination, as well as the action. So it's a communication control which you can do between the virtual networks. You have different between the different subnets and virtual machines. Here is this is an example, the screenshot of network security rules which you can create. So you can see that this is an inbound rule which you are creating in this screenshot. You can define the source. In the source, you can define any. That means any source, any. If you don't want to specify what is your source, or you can define IP addresses. You can define my IP address as well. Service tags. You can actually create different type of sources. We'll see how we can create that. Destination, again, you have same options, source, destination. Then you have service. Service refers to the services which are well-known services, well-known internet services like HTTPS, SSH, RDP, DNS, and so on. Then destination port, you can define the ports as well. And then at the end, you can define the priority. The lower the number, the higher the priority. That's what the priority means in processing of the rule sets. Then after the network security group, we have something called application security group. Now, application security group is not a separate component. It works along with network security group. You can see here as an example, we have a small window here. Let me use something here to highlight, right? So you can see on this virtual network, as I told you, this symbol represents virtual network on Azure. So we have a virtual network here. There's a block. This block is a virtual network. Within the virtual network, we have different subnets or different servers. You can see there's a web server, there's application server group, there's DB server group. And here is an example of the network security rules. So what does the rule say? There is action, again, allow or deny, name of the rule, source, destination, and the port number. So see the difference here in the source and destination. You're not defining an IP address or the range. You're defining the name here. So this can be a group of computers, for example, web servers. So if you know which of your servers are web servers, you can combine, you can create a logical group of that. And you can use that group name in the security rules, in the network security rules. So this is called application security group. So you're combining the servers in one particular group called application server group, and you can use that group name in your network security rule set. So ASGs logically group Khaja and Sujini. Please move your cursors from the screen. Your cursors are visible on the screen. I think this is happening when I'm activating this this feature here to highlight. Right. Let me just use the laser instead. Okay, so application security groups logically group virtual machines, web servers, application servers, works within Azure VNet tied to network security rules. So application security groups, you're just using that for logically grouping the servers based on the roles. And then again, you'll use at the end, network security group rules. As you see here, we are creating the rules, but instead of using the IP addresses, we are using a group called web servers. So that rule will apply to all the web servers in that particular group. Simplifies network rule management. Instead of using IPs, you use group names. So we'll see what exactly it means on the whiteboard. Okay. All right, let's continue. So here you have a quick comparison between the network security group and the application security group. The purpose of each of this group, network security group, the purpose is basically controls inbound and outbound network traffic to Azure resources. Acts like a firewall rule set, which is also called as access control list in networking terminology. Whereas application security group, groups VMs or NICs with similar security requirement to simplify NSG rule management. So basically, ASG is just what do you say, an add-on feature to manage the network security groups, the rule sets. Type, a security rule that allows or denies traffic. That's the type of the security rule, network security group. And in ASG, it is a logical grouping of virtual machines or NICs. Uh, both are actually you can use these names interchangeably because when you talk about the rule sets, you are applying the rules on the virtual machines, and in other terms, it means to the network interface cards which are attached to those virtual machines. Use inside network security rules. When you see this in action, you will understand it much more clearly. Applied to subnets or NICs. This is associated with the virtual machine NICs and referenced in network security rules. So NSG is the actual firewall rule wherein you define who can talk to whom, and ASG is the labels of group of VMs you use inside network security group rules to make them easier to manage. We'll see how it works. So let's go back to the whiteboard before we continue with the Azure DNS. So we need to understand NSG and ASG. I'm stopping this sharing here. All right, we are back here on the whiteboard. So let's start with NSG, which is network security group. So we have, for example, again, let's take an example of a virtual network, VNet. And let's say we have two subnets in this. Subnet, I have cloud subnet, which is used for production servers. I have dev subnet, which is used for development servers. The IP range is 10.0.1.0/24, 10.0.2.0/24. Now, these are two different subnets within a virtual network. And I have servers here. Let's say this is my domain controller. This is my file server, application server, and so on. And here I have some users sitting who are working on development environment, some servers and as well as the users. For example, so let's say this is my dev server. And I have a user. Now, how can we have a user working on a virtual network? Can you have a user in the virtual network? Yes. A question to you guys. I can build a virtual machine with Windows
It's a
11.
local user, right? Something like
No, I mean, I'm talking about the machine. So I will build a virtual machine with the Windows 11 operating system, for example, and I grant access to this virtual machine to one of the user who is working on my development environment. Okay. So this is my environment. Now I have assigned different IPs to my servers. One dot, for example, 10. This is 1.12, 10, 11, 12, or whatever you know. 13. Similarly, here I have the IP assigned to the server 2.10, and this virtual machine, and let's say I have a IP assigned 10.2.11. Now, by default, as I told you, there is no restriction between the subnets. By default, there is no restrictions, no communication restriction, specifically about communication. That means user who's this virtual machine in this subnet can access this server easily. That's within the same subnet, and also these servers which are in the production subnet. Now I don't want that because these are my two different environments. One is production and one is dev, and I don't want this VM to have access to any of my production servers. This is by default allowed. The communication within the virtual network between subnet is by default allowed. So any server, any virtual machine, any resource in one subnet can access the resource in other subnet. So in order to control this, you can use something called NSG, right? Network security group. So in that, you're creating the access control list. So what is the rule I will create? I'll define the source. What will be the source here? Let's say this source, this VM 10.0.2.11 destination. I don't want this virtual machine to access any of my servers in the product. This is the complete production subnet. So in the destination, I don't want to define a specific IP. I want to define the whole subnet. I can do that 10.0.1.0/24. And the action, I can take an action, say deny. This is my very simple network security rule, wherein I'm saying that this virtual machine cannot access any of the servers in my subnet and the production subnet. And this rule set you can apply on this subnet. So you can on this subnet, you can apply on this subnet, or you can even apply on this subnet. And in any place you can apply it. So overall, you can link your NSG. Your NSG can be linked to a subnet, or it can link to a virtual machine or network interface card. So basically, when you assign it to the NIC is again attached to the virtual machine, right? So these are the two places where you can apply your network security group. So what is the best practice? What we have seen, it is not advised to apply the rules on the virtual machine level. It's not advice. You can still do it. If you want to manage, if you want to have a very granular control, you can do that. For example, you don't. When will you do that? I want this Windows 11 machine to allow access to only the web server, application server, for example. So I want to say that, okay, this, I don't have any problem, this virtual machine accessing my application server. This is fine for me. I want to allow this communication. Uh, I want to enable this communication, but I don't want this virtual machine to allow access to any of the other servers. So you can do that. You can apply the rule on a specific virtual machine, or you can even apply the rule on subnet level. You can do both. We'll see the example in the lab. We'll see example how it works. So one more scenario. Now NSG is we have seen NSG, a simple, very simple, basic explanation I've done. Now so let's say we have same scenario, two different subnets. We have prod, we have dev. Okay. Now here we have different servers. So let's say I have multiple servers for high availability. So these are two of my web servers, web server 1, web server 2, and these are my database servers, DB1, DB2. Okay. And here I have the dev server, development server, and I have the user who's working, not with his laptop exactly, and the cloud. There's another virtual machine with Windows 11 operating system, I can say. So these are this is my environment. Now I want to allow communication for this user, since this is a developer. He developed the code here, he tests the code, and then later he would require this to deploy this code out to the web servers, right? That's what he's assigned to do. That's his job. So he tests the code and then deploy later to the web server. So in this case, now in order to allow, I'm blocking all the communication between dev and production, for example. So my NSG says NSG group rule. What I have is anything coming from dev 10 10.0.2.0/24, and this is 10.0.1.0/24. There are two different subnets. By default, the communication is allowed between the subnets. So I want to block the communication. So I will create a rule wherein I say source is my dev subnet complete 10.2.0/24. Destination is my production subnet 10.0.1.0/24, and the action deny. I don't want any communication to happen between these two subnets. Okay, so this I've done. Now I want to allow access to this user, to this virtual machine, uh, access only to the web servers. So I have group of web servers. So what is the best way? The best way and easy to manage. Now what I can do in this network security rules, I can create two more rules, right? I can create a rule saying that, okay, this is my virtual machine, which needs access to the web servers 10.0.2.10 is the IP address of this virtual machine. So I want to allow this communication 10.0.2.10 as a source. Destination will be the web server. So I need to define a web server IP address, web server 1, and the protocol will be HTTP or HTTPS, whatever you want to allow, and the action will be allow. So this is a rule I will set here. So similarly, I have to create one more rule. So here I'm creating a rule one by one for the same source, and for the web servers 10.0.20.10, web server 2, and so on. So instead of doing multiple rule sets, what I can do is I can create a application server group. So I can create something called application server group, which will have I can say ASG web servers. I can logically, group these servers. So I say, okay, web one and web two. So these two servers are part of this ASG group. This is my group name, web service, ASG group web service. So what I can do instead of doing this two rule sets, I can create one single rule wherein I can use source as same as the virtual machine, which we are trying to allow communication from. And in destination, instead of defining one server at a time, I will use the group ASG web servers. Okay. And then I'll say the protocol HTTP and the action is allow. So this is where ASG, the application server group, will help in managing the network security rule sets. So it is for easier management of the rule sets. Instead of having multiple rule sets for the same communication for different servers, you can group virtually, you can group the servers in one particular group. Since web servers both are having the same function, I created an application security group and I created a rule base in network security rules based on that application server group. I hope this is clear and we can see this in action now.
This ASG is used only for these similar protocols, or
Exactly.
we can
Similar,
have
yes, yes, exactly. Similar server roles. I mean, AZ is for just
this web,
simplifying your administration.
so we cannot use a web and SMTP server as an
You can
ASG.
also create, you can use ASG for any similar functions based on the protocol.
I mean, let's assume one of the web server in the farm has an SMTP role also.
Right.
So there are two web
You can
servers.
create,
One of
yeah, you
them
can
has
create
a SMTP.
multiple, you can create multiple application service group
Hmm.
based on the protocol.
Which is
If you have
again the multiple ASGs, not the same ASG that we can create, right?
yes, yes, you can do that.
No.
Okay, let's see. Let's go to the labs now.
I was assuming ASG is a WAF, but you make
ASG is
it
what?
is a WAF
Not really. It's not a WAF. It's just grouping the roles. That's it.
or a load balancer. That is what we use ASG for.
Uh-huh.
That is
You
what
can
I
use
was
ASG,
assuming.
you can use ASG in different places. One is the network security rule set when you're creating the rule set. We'll see there are multiple use cases of that as well. Okay. Right. So let's carry on with this exercise now. And I would suggest if you can follow this by doing the lab, you'll be able to complete the lab at the same time instead of keeping it for later. So what are we doing here? We are going to create a virtual network, sorry, with subnets using the portal. Okay, that's the first thing we're doing. The organization plans a large amount of growth for our core services. We know that in this task, you create a virtual network and the associated subnets to accommodate the existing resources and plan the growth. So we have a diagram. Now this is the diagram what you're seeing is just for your representation and understanding. And in Azure, you won't see anywhere your network showing as a block diagram and showing subnets within that. Though we have some visualization tools where you can visualize how your network is arranged and how subnets are associated with each network. We'll see that later. So it is easier for you to understand what you're doing. So we are creating the network VNets, virtual network. In task one, we are creating the virtual network and we're creating the subnets within that network. So Azure portal, I'm in Azure portal already. And then we go to virtual networks. You can search for it. All right, you see the virtual networks here. And here it shows you the virtual networks which are already there in my subscription. I have multiple virtual networks here. Sorry, I think I've clicked something different. Okay. Right. So I have my virtual networks. Let's create this, follow this exercise and create the virtual network. So we click on create. And as I told you, creating a virtual network doesn't have any cost implication. It will you'll not be charged for creating the virtual network and the subnets within that. You'll be charged only for the data transfer when it happens. Again, not within the same virtual network and subnets, but if you're transferring data from one virtual network to the other, then there's some cost implication. We'll see that later. We have some slides relating to that. So in the basics, complete the basic tab. We are naming this virtual network. Again, it's important on what naming convention you use. You should, if it is an enterprise network, it's a always good practice. When you're building your infrastructure, follow a certain naming convention for your different resources, for virtual networks, for virtual machines. As that will really organize and make things easier for you to manage. So here I'm selecting. See again, there are some star parameters. So we need to understand that while creating any resource on Azure, whether you're creating a virtual network or a virtual machine. So when will this help you? When you're doing infrastructure as a code. When you when you build a code to deploy your complete Azure infrastructure and you come across multiple errors, then you have to validate whether you have your star property elements properly set or not. So this is very important. Whenever you're creating any resource, you have to associate that resource with a subscription and a resource group. So what is the resource group here? Are we creating a resource group? Yes, we are creating a resource group with this name. Okay, so subscription resource group name, and then the name of the virtual network. This name will not be used anywhere. Uh, it's just for your identification and documentation. So you know what is the virtual network about. And the region, you select the region, move to the IP addresses tab. Then next, we are not doing anything on the security part right now for the virtual network. We are moving ahead to the IP addressing part. So in here you can see by default Azure is suggesting to create a virtual network with this range 10.0.0/16. You're of course allowed to change this. As I told you, if you're extending your on-prem setup or you have future plans to even extend your Azure to on-prem, it can be both way possible, right? Let's say you started your business, you have your own infrastructure, and you're extending to Azure. So either that way, or you started with the Azure platform, and you in the future you have come up with some requirement wherein you want to have on-prem setup. So extending your network to the on-prem setup is also possible. So you have to plan this IP addressing, IP scheme basically carefully. So just make sure that this does not overlap with your other networks which you are having. Okay, so it suggests you this IP range /16, and it shows you here how many IP addresses you will get in this range, 65,000. I don't know if anyone is using those many number of virtual machines or the resources on Azure, but this is the possibility. And you see there's a default subnet created in this with /24. So you're dividing this big network into smaller subnets, wherein in each subnet you will have 256 addresses, right? So default group is created. So what are we doing in this example? IP address space, separate the entries. Okay, so move to the IP addresses, select add subnet. So we are going to create one subnet here, apart from the default subnet. There is a subnet option. Let's see it here. Add a subnet. So here we see Add subnet. Okay, it gives you the option for, okay, shared services subnet. That's the name we are going to give. Name of the subnet, not the default one, shared services. There is a concept. I was thinking to cover that after the network virtual networks, which will not happen this in today's session and tomorrow as well. We'll keep it for the next session, but it's really important. There is a concept of landing zone in cloud environments. So setting up the landing zone, that actually that the so landing zone is nothing but a blueprint for your Azure infrastructure, or the same concept, same methodology applies on different cloud service providers as well. So there is a blueprint which is suggested by Microsoft called landing zone, in which they explain you how many subscriptions you should create, how many subnets, how many virtual networks you should create based on your organization's need. Or there's a standard one as well, which you can modify. You can change that blueprint as per your requirement. Uh, we'll see that later in later classes. So let's continue with this one. Shared services subnet name, and starting subnet. Now we already have one subnet created. You can see this is the address. This is your VNet range. Within that VNet range, I have already one default subnet created, so I can't use the same subnet range again. It has suggested me to create this one, starting with this, and it's going to be /24. And if you see here, you have an option to change from /24 to any size you want. So depending on the need of your subnet. So if you're building this subnet particularly for small number of devices, for example, you want to deploy only network devices in the subnet, firewall, VPN gateway, and so on. We'll be seeing that as well in later classes. So you can go for a small size. That means /29 means you will have only 8 IP addresses available for you to assign to the resources in that particular subnet. But here we are going with the /24 default, wherein we get 256 addresses in total. And this is the range it shows you. Okay. Starting address, size, database subnet. We are creating one more subnet. So we are creating one shared services subnet, and we are creating one database subnet. So let's add this. Okay, so is that added already? Yes. So I've got my shared services subnet created. Now I need to add one more subnet for my database services. So here in this example, it is segregating the subnets based on the services. So we are creating the subnet. Yes,
Maksud bhai, sorry to stop you. For this
mm,
shared subnet services, starting address, I mean 1.0, we need to change that as per the example.
I'll come to that. Yeah, let's create this one. I'll explain you. Starting
Okay.
address, we don't have to change anything here. It is
No,
just when you
shared service subnet, starting it
similar.
gave
If
10,
you
20.
see, okay, let's look at that. I'm creating this one as well. Let's create this, and I'll come to this subnet which you are referring to. Okay, so in this subnet, you see every subnet is created with a complete range, wherein you have 256 addresses, and the starting address is 1.0. That means it is a network address. You can't assign it to anything. So if I go to the details of the subnet, so you can see it has starting address. Okay, it is predefined. You are not defining it. The starting and ending IP address and the number of IP addresses in the range. It is showing you the starting IP address. Based on this starting IP address, how many IP addresses you will have in your IP range, which you are choosing. So what is your question? I didn't get, Asif.
So in our example, they gave the range. So
Yes,
we can use the same range. Yeah, in our lab example.
yes, exactly.
Instead of 10.0.1.0, they gave
Yeah.
some range for the
I-
shared service subnet.
In the example you're saying, yes, you can do that. Here we
In the
are,
exam,
here, hmm,
yeah.
one second. I'm going to that
In the
now.
exercise, if you open the exercise file,
Yes. I'm coming to that. Yeah, so it has different example. We don't have to follow the exact same procedure. I'm just because I already I'm creating a virtual network with a different range. So either you can change that, we can do that. We can follow exactly what it is saying. So here it is showing you this this subnet. There are two subnets it is creating. This is the major subnet. So instead of what default it is suggesting us, what we can do is we can just get rid of this subnets what we created, and here we'll change our VNet itself to this IP range. So slash 16, I'll say, based on the exercise, right? So this is the virtual network, the big range what we are selecting. 10.20.0.0 is our major subnet, and then we are dividing that into smaller subnets based on our services, right? I hope that is clear what we are doing now.
I have one question. Can I?
Yes, definitely.
So in the IP range, they mention the 10 dot series. So what about other series like 172? We
I told
have
you these are private IP addresses. You can use any IP address which is available in the private IP ranges.
no, but the problem is 172, 192 is not taking actually. So can you try to?
It's not taking.
No, I
Is that a
tried.
private IP range?
Yes.
Sure. What is the IP
Maybe
address?
I'm not familiar. Can you try?
172?
172 16 dot
Is
0
that
dot
private
0.
range? 0
Yes.
0.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can take, right?
Yes.
Uh, add create subnet. Just click on create subnet.
Okay. Let's create the subnet.
Go up, go up. Yeah. Add
Hmm.
subnet. Here actually, you cannot try. It's coming, but we need to put here actually. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Got
we have
it?
to put here, then it will come here.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So we'll follow this exercise so that you can do that yourself as well later on. Let's create this subnet. This is the major subnet /16. So as I told you, this is very critical. The virtual network, if you're creating the IP scheme, it has to be as per your requirement, and it can be a bigger range. So you can choose that. Then you can create this subnets based on your requirement. Again, I'm creating the subnets based on. This example is going based on the services. The name of the subnet is shared service subnet, and starting address is going to be 10.20.10.0. So we are selecting 10.20 subnet, and this is the virtual. You can't change the virtual network. You can change the starting address. Okay, so 10.20.10.0/24. That's one subnet. Add, and then we add another one. Database subnet. Okay, and here we are going with 10.20.20. Right, so we got 3 subnets in total. This is the default one which is created automatically. We have 2 subnets created for our services. Okay, every virtual network must have at least one subnet. Reminder that 5 IP addresses will always be reserved. So consider that in your planning. So that's a note again for you when you are building your virtual networks. To finish creating the core services VNet and its associated subnet, review and create. Now we'll go review and create. And then verify the configuration, pass validation. Okay, it's validation passed. So if there's an issue, it will highlight you here. So what are we doing here? We are creating virtual network. This is the address space /16. Under this virtual network, we are creating a default subnet, which is automatically created. We are creating a shared subnet for our services. We are creating a subnet for database servers. Let's go ahead and create it. Okay, we have verified the address space and subnets. We can go to the settings and check again once it is created. Go to the resource. settings, and here this is your virtual network. Let's go back to this. Okay, virtual networks. Right from the beginning, you can go to the virtual networks. You can see that there is a virtual network created, core services VNet, and in this VNet, you can see address spaces. This is our address range /16. Okay, and here we have subnets. We have 3 subnets created, and we can see here available IPs. Okay, these are the number of available IPs which you can use, leaving the reserved IP addresses. Okay, then settings page in the automation section, select export template. The automation, where do we have the automation section? Yes, automation section, select export template. And then wait for the template to be generated. Okay, so it has created a template. So this is, you can see this is your infrastructure as a code concept again. We can, as I told you, we can deploy your infrastructure as a code. You can code your whole Azure infrastructure, and you can create different, you can deploy that using different templates. ARM template, which is by default a native Microsoft Azure tool. Bicep is also again for Microsoft, but with little more human readable codes. Then you have Terraform, which is a cloud cross-platform deployment tool, infrastructure as a code, which the code, if you develop the code in this, that code you can use for deploying the infrastructure on Azure, AWS, as well as on some other cloud providers. So download the template. So this has generated the template for the virtual network which we created. So we created through GUI, right? So it is showing you the whole process. It has given you as a code. Let's download this. I think we are having a process to see how we can deploy now with the code. The same thing what we have done, because we are creating 2 virtual networks, right? As per our practice, we have created task 1 is completed, wherein we have created a virtual network. We have created two subnets. This is the core services VNet virtual network itself, and 2 subnets we have created. So now we are going to perform a task 2, and in this task, we are creating again a virtual network with the name manufacturing VNet, and we are creating 2 subnets, but not through GUI, through the code. So let's look at that process now. So yeah, we downloaded the template, navigate on the local machine. Okay. Where is our template? Let's go to that. Okay, let's start here. Okay, so we got the template. Let's see what is next. Right. So before proceeding, ensure you have template.json file. You will use this template to create manufacturing VNet in the next task. So do we have that file? And this template.json file. You can see the type of the file is JSON file. What is there in this template in this file? Okay, so that's your template file. So whatever you have done through GUI to deploy the virtual network and subnets within it, this is the code it has generated for it. So that infrastructure you can deploy with the help of this coding. So this template, we simply got it from the Azure. It has created a template for our assistants. So for next network virtual network, we'll be using that template now. Creating a virtual network and subnets using a template. So in this task, you create the manufacturing VNet virtual network and associated subnets. The organization, again, it gives you the background why we are creating multiple virtual networks and the subnets. Template, go to the template file exported in the previous task. It should be new. Okay, it's there. Edit the file using the editor of your choice. Can use any editor. Many editors have a change all occurrence features. If you are using Visual Studio code, be sure you are working in a trusted window. I don't have the Visual Studio on my machine. So what we can do is make changes for the following manufacturing VNet virtual network. So you see what we are doing now. All the details which we have filled in during the VNet creation. We have given a network name, VNet name. We have given the VNet range of IP addresses on the virtual network level. Then we created the subnets. For each subnet, we have given a name. Now we are going to create a different virtual network now. The second virtual network with two subnets, which will have a different name altogether in the different IP range. So we have to edit this file. Now we can't just blindly use the same template and redeploy it for the next virtual machine. So we have to edit and replace those parameters. So let's do that. I don't have the editor on my machine, but we can do it manually. In the text file itself, we can do it. Let me share that again. Okay, so what do we do? The best way to do is follow the exercise and replace the parameters.
Change the name and subnets.
Yes, replace all occurrences of core VNet service with manufacturing. So we'll go ahead and replace this part first. Control F. We should be having an option to replace it. Replace. Okay, so what we are going to replace this one with. Oh, come on, there are too many windows open here, so I'm juggling between the windows. 1 second. Okay, so right now we just need these two windows. One is the lab window, and other one is the template file. So in the step one, we are going to replace core services VNet with the manufacturing unit. So we are just changing the virtual network name. Okay, so replace all. So that is done. That's the way of doing this with the tools. So instead of you going and finding each line with this particular name, changing it with this one, it does it automatically with this. That's replaced. I guess replace all occurrences of 10 dots at the VNet itself. This is our source, and we are going to replace it with this one. That's all. Is it really replacing or not? Let's find and see.
Done.
It's changing. It's changing.
It's changing. Yes, it's changed.
Okay.
So just to make sure. So now make changes for the manufacturing VNet subnets. Okay, we're going to change this shared services subnet with this one. Okay, that's done. And changing the subnet ranges itself for each subnet. Okay, and then changing this one. So it's kind of your infrastructure as a code practice. So you're now coding your infrastructure in a file instead of you clicking through multiple options on Azure portal. You're just using the script or the code. So for this purpose, there are different tools available, which makes things much more easier than what we are doing right now. We'll see some of the examples of using the Terraform template also in future. Okay. Now read back through file. Ensure we can't do that. We just save it. We have verified it already. That is doing the changes. So I've saved the file. There's a completed template file in the lab files directory. Okay, do we have that? The directory. What does it say? I didn't get that. There's a completed template files in the lab files directory. Does anyone understand what it means? So in the download, we are editing the template.json file. It is the file using the editor. Okay, we did that. Okay, I think it's referring to the Visual Studio. It is suggesting. Okay, so make changes to the parameter files. Now locate the parameter file. We'll go to there are two files we're using here. One is the template itself, and the second one is the parameter file. So when you downloaded this template from Azure, it downloaded both of these files. Now let's look at what this file is having. Okay. Make the changes to parameters file. So this file we have located. Edit the file using the editor and replace this control F. Replace. Okay. This one. Okay, done. That's also done. Save the file. Deploy the custom template. Now we are going to use this files to deploy it. In the portal, search for deploy a custom template. So let's go back to our portal. I hope you guys are not having difficulty following me because I'm juggling between these screens. So that's why I'm suggesting you follow the exercise as well. It will be much easier for you to do it. All right. So we have here deploy a custom template. Right. Let's close this one and go to our lab. Okay, select build your own template in the editor and load file. Okay, and then load the file. Which file we are going to load? Select the template.json file with your manufacturing changes and save it. Okay, load file. It's in the download folder. It's here. Okay. So template.json file with your manufacturing changes and save. Review and create. Okay. Save it. Review and create. So now here we have some more options. Load file, template.json file, save the changes, review and create. So we have to select the resource book. It is not selecting it. It's not telling even to select the resource book. Review and create. So it says customize template for resources. Okay, and create. So let's see if this does exactly what we have done using the GUI. Wait for the template to deploy and confirm in the portal. Manufacturing virtual network and subnets will create it. Oh, we got some error. Deployment to resource group failed. Additional details from the underlying API that might be helpful. What does it mean? This is the interesting part. This is where we learn what we are doing wrong and where we are wrong. So there is something which we have missed, I guess. So until here we were good. There was no complication. Now here we are at this stage where we are deploying this. Deploy custom template will be exactly what we did. Let's see. Do we have any error here? Any errors which explains what happened? It's deployment to resource group. It's referring resource group file. Additional details from underlying API that might be helpful. At least one resource deployment operation failed. Please list deployment operations for detail. Anything more than this? Okay. Let's see what happened exactly. Did it create the virtual network or not? Virtual networks. Because I don't think we have missed any step as per the lab. We followed exactly step by step, but except that selecting the resource group, we have selected manually the resource group. That is the only change we have done during the process. So here in this process, we selected the file and then it said to continue with this one. Here I selected the resource group. It's taking so long. Let's reload. If you have a deploy more than one time, if you have to deploy more than one time, you may find some resources were successfully completed and the deployment is failing. We can manually remove those resources and try again. Okay, it did not create the VNet for manufacturing VNet, what we are supposed to create. So let's try that again. We have some message here from Ahmed. Did you find anything, Ahmed?
The schema API is all correct version.
Ensure the schema and API version are valid and supported. But we are not defining anywhere schema. It's in the template itself. Let's try once again and see what is happening. Let's look at the files. So are you following the same process? You have done everything? This is our template. Okay. Content version, parameters. This is virtual network. API version. Because as per the exercise, we are just utilizing the same template, so which we downloaded. So this all version references should be valid still. That's how it has created our virtual network through GUI. 30/16 1030. Okay. We're creating subnet, default subnet. 1020. Okay, this might be the issue. We are not having a default subnet, and this default subnet belongs to a different range of IP range, the one which we created before. Look at here, it doesn't fall under this range, so this might be causing the issue. So we can remove this particular range. Let's see how we can remove it. It is starting from here and ending here before the subnet. Okay, let's get rid of this one. Yes, we can get rid of this, not the bracket. Let's save this. That's something which I've noticed, because we are trying to create a subnet which cannot be under that particular range of IP address. Let's see this. But the errors are not always accurate, so you have to really understand that. Let's try to create this again. Deploy a custom template. Okay. Build your own template in editor and load file. Load file. Which file? Template file, right? Template file. Template.json. Template is loaded. And file with your manufacturing test set. Click save. We save this. We review and create it. See here. I don't know. In the lab, it is missing this part. Without this, I don't think you can create the virtual networks without associating with the resource group. So that is mandatory. As I told you, it has to be part of some resource group. So this is the resource group which we created. Review and create. Validation is done. Okay, create. Submitting deployment. Deploying in progress. Deployment in progress. Again failed. Additional details from the underlying API that might help. That might be helpful. At least of one resource deployment operation failed. We're just shooting in the dark, it seems. So let me do one more thing. Let's see how Copilot can help with this error. Subscription. Okay, select subscription. What does it say? Container instance. Right. Let's do. Let's try to do this. You all guys try to do this. If there's something which is missing in this lab, we'll have to uh, do it ourselves. I'll do the custom lab and share with you. Because here I'm sure there's something which is missing in this process. It's not explaining how to modify or change the default subnet. That's what I just noticed. It's just changing these two. So let's look at the template again. Oh, I don't think we can revert those changes which we did. Subnet 1, subnet 2. What else is there? I think it's better to use some kind of editor to pinpoint the exact issue here. Let me do that. I'll do it offline. I'll share it with you tomorrow where we are going wrong. Right. So what we can do is we, we can create the lab. We have done the lab for creating the virtual machine and the subnets through GUI. We are not able to do it through the template, which I'll see it offline. I don't want to waste time for everyone here troubleshooting. I'll try to figure out what is wrong there. So I think we can end our session today here, because now the next thing will be doing the lab for NSG and the ASG. So if you have any doubts, if you want to check something, meanwhile we have 10 minutes to wrap up. Do let me know. We can go through it and clarify if any doubts are there. Yes, guys. Anything from your end? Or we are all good? What we have done, we understood everything. But I would again, once again, request you do the labs yourself. You will be much more confident, and you know what you're doing exactly. So that's it. That's it for today. We'll continue this virtual network. The virtual networks part is quite big. There are a lot of things in this. We have next thing, which is about VNet pairing, wherein we connect two different virtual networks in two different subscriptions. There's a VNet global pairing, connecting two different virtual networks across the different Azure regions. Then we have load balancers. We have application gateways, and many important stuff relating to the networking concepts. So we'll be covering those. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to cover those. I'm going slow because I need you to understand what we're doing. If I rush, you might not understand or you miss something. So let's keep it. I'm going in a very slow pace, and you see in this today's session, the IP addressing is not particularly explained in this series of you know what do you say, the course syllabus. It is a separate subject altogether. You should do some homework on your own and watch some videos on understanding the IP addressing, which you don't really need to go in detail, because now with the help of cloud and the internet resources, you can plan your IP addressing scheme easily if you have some idea about the business. If you know what you're building, what you're looking at, what you want, what the business requirement is, so you can start building the network. You can, if you have basic understanding of IP addressing, because here there are many things which we do to set up the network on-prem, on on your organization setup on-prem, which we don't do in Azure Virtual Networks. So it's simplified networking here on Azure Virtual Network. So you create the virtual network, big network, create multiple subnets. But again, it gets complicated the more components you add in virtual networking, like load balancing, firewalls, routing. So these are the concepts which you have to understand more than doing the labs. So you need to understand the concept, then you can follow step-by-step labs and see that in action. That will be more satisfying for all of you.